All right, got it. All right. Good morning, everybody. Today's Daf Gimel, Daf Daled, and Masech Sukkah. Hashem through it. So we left off in Gimel and Aleph. We just discussed the proof. Hiloni Amalka, who followed the words to Chachamim, her Sukkah, in the Machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan over there. So I think we got to Amar Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak. Yeah, does that make sense? Maybe around 10 lines from the top. Yeah. So Amar Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, halacha tzricha shedei mechazekes rosho v'rubo v'shulchano. The halacha is that the minimum size of the sukkah, when I say that's the width by length, should be able to hold rosho v'rubo v'shulchano, right? His head, most of his body, and his shulchan. Right back then, he used to lie down. Rashi points out that on Beis Medbeis, and therefore it wasn't like our seats where they were, take less space, a little longer. So 7 tefachim with his head, most of his body, and his shulchan. Right, shulchan adds on basically a tefach by tefach, like a little corner stand for the food. So if he actually held that just rosha v'rubo, it would be 6 by 6. But the rosha v'rubo v'shulchano is 7 by 7. So that was the halach. So Rabbi Abba Kamat, who is this like Beis Shammai? Is this like Beis Shammai, who said that earlier? So we saw this sheet earlier. Samarlei El Kamat. Who else would be like? Yeah, it's like Beis Shammai. And he could tell me some slightly different version. Rabbi Abba Damar Lechamani. He said he uses like Amalei Beis Shammai. This is the opinion of Beis Shammai. Right, and do not move from it. This is the opinion of Beis Shammai, who says Rosho v'rubo v'shulchano. So Maskevla Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Mimai Beis Shammai Beis Hillel B'Sukkah K'tanich Tligi. Who says the machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel in terms of Rosh Haruba Shulchano is a halacha, as basically we're deciding as to whether the shulchan needs to be in the sukkah, and we're talking about basically where it needs to be in the sukkah. And there's the potential size of the sukkah is to hold his shulchan, which is an extra tefach by tefach. Maybe that's not like there. Maybe we're even talking about a larger sukkah. We could go into Yasif Apuma de Metulasa, the Shulchan B'Seichabayis. And he's basically on the edge of his seat, edge of the table, right, edge of his bed where he's lying on, and his shulchan is in the house. The Beis Shammai Savri Gazrinon Shema Yimashe. Right? So the Beis Shammai says, right, that we're actually talking about a gezerah. It's not the fact of whether the sukkah has to be large enough to hold the shulchan, whether one has to sit with his shulchan actually in the sukkah, right? In Eretz Yisrael, especially in Yerushalayim, when everyone has the merpesets, then it's very enclosed, so they need space. So you have your shulchan, your table in the house, and then you're in the sukkah, but the shulchan's out of there. Maybe that's the case. And what's the issue there? Beis Shammai says you can't sit there with your shulchan outside the sukkah in the house. Why is that? Because if your table is in the house, you might follow the table and go in the house and start eating, not in the house, right? And Beis Hillel says, no, there's plenty of space in the sukkah, even though, right, your table is in the house, but you and your head and your body is in the sukkah, no issue. Maybe that's the machlokes. Not the machlokes is what is the minimum shear, what is the minimum size that a sukkah has to be, whether it's rosho v'rubo versus rosho v'rubo v'shulchano, right? Maybe we're talking about a larger sukkah, and just the question is whether a person will continue or follow after his table and accidentally eat in the house if his table is located in the house and not in the sukkah. The Deacon Nami, and you can go ahead, if you look at the lashon, it actually sort of makes sense. That's not like Tiktani, because it says over there, Mishahaya Roisha Ruba V'Sukkah V'Shulchan B'Seichabayis Beis Shammai Paisin Beis Hillel Machshirin. Right, somebody was sitting right with his head and his body in the sukkah, and his table was in the house. Beis Shammai says pasal, Beis Hillel says machsh, and Beis Hillel says kosher. So it sounds like over there is talking about a situation where one happens to be sitting with his body in the sukkah and his table in the house, and that's the machlokes. And if we're talking about a case over there, the machlokes over there is what is the minimum size of a sukkah. It shouldn't have said Beis Shammai Paislin, or excuse me, it shouldn't have said, it should have said that his sukkah was mechazekas, right? It was able to hold his shulchan, or any mechazekas was not able to hold his shulchan, right? So therefore, you see that really maybe they're not arguing on a case of what is the minimum shear of a sukkah. Rather, they're arguing as to a special gezerah, a special decree as, hey, if you're sitting in your sukkah and your table and your food is in the house, you might accidentally eat in the house. The Gemara asks, I was sukkah katana likely, but they're not arguing on what is the minimum size of a sukkah. But Tanya, we're learning a brayso. If you have a sukkah which is able to hold his head, most of his body, and his table, it's kshera. And Rabbi Yomer, arba amos al arba amos. So we have the Tana Kama here. So we're soon going to have two slightly different brises, right? And we'll attribute, basically, I don't want to rule the end, but we'll attribute to either Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai, right? And then the Rebbe, who we actually saw in Beis Manalef, says the minimum size of the sukkah is 4 amos by 4 amos. Okay, so this brisa over here says Rosh Haruba Shulchanos is the minimum size, and then Rebbe argues and says 4 by 4. But Tani, we have another brisa says Rebbe Yomer close to Rebbe says like usual, any sukkah that is not 4 by 4 amos is psula. Say Rosh Haruba only if it holds his head and most of his body. And it doesn't mention anything about a shulchan. So we have basically two brises, seems to be an identical machlokes. Both of them have Rebbe who holds minimum size of a shear, minimum size of a sukkah is 4 amos by 4 amos. And then there's an arguing opinion of the Chachamim. One is Rosho Rubo v'Shulchano, and the other one is Rosho v'Rubo. So how do we answer that? Kashi Adadi. It's a contradiction to Chachamim. Elo alav shmami noha beis Shammai ha beis Hillel. Rather, let's say what we basically said earlier, that Beis Shammai holds you need Rosh Haruba Shulchano. You need all three. And Beis Hillel is the one who says Rosh Haruba, right? So and Beis Hillel it just says, no, you need enough to hold his basically his head and his body, which would be 6 tvachim by 6 tvachim, versus the Rosh Haruba Shulchano of 7 tvachim by 7 tvachim. So you see over here that perhaps there is a machlokes in terms of the minimum size of the sukkah between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. So Marzutra and Masim is not Diktani. Actually, if you look at the words of the Mishnah over there of Mishahaya, the one which appears later on Chachas Beis, I think Aleph. Right.
It couldn't be the Rabbi Shita is according to Beis Shammai.
No, he's arguing on both of them. There's each brisa he argues with an opinion. There's 3 opinions here. There's going to be what we just explained. There's Rosh Haruba, Rosh Haruba Shulchano, and Dalet Amos. Rosh Haruba was 6 by 6 tvachim. Rosh Haruba Shulchano is going to be 7 by 7 tvachim, and Rebbe is 4 amos by 4 amos.
So he's not arguing that.
Right. So he's not arguing right. So my answers. So Miditani and it says Masinami Diga. Miditani Bethel says Beis Shammai Paisam Beis Hillel Machshirin. Over there, it says in the case of we said if somebody was sitting in a sukkah and his table was in the house. Over there, it said Beis Shammai says Pasul Beis Hillel Machshirin B'misa. And if it's we're only talking about over there whether it's just a gzera B'misa Beis Shammai lo yatsa Beis Hillel yatsa. It should have said whether he fulfilled his obligation or not fulfilled his obligation with his table in the house. That's what it should have said. Okay, so it's a kasha. We brought proofs both ways. Mishahaya. All right. But the case of Mishahaya sounds like if it was talking about a situation and not talking about the minimum size shear of a sukkah. So the Gemara answers L'Yaylam B'tar to Pligi. Really, there's actually 2 machlokesim going on between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. Pligi b'sukkah Ketana, Upligi b'sukkah Gedayla. They actually argue in the case of sukkah katana, what is the minimum size of a sukkah, right? The width by the length, right? And that we saw is either Rosh Haruba or Rosh Haruba Shulchano. And they also argue in the case of sukkah dolo, you can be sitting in the biggest sukkah there is, but if your table is outside the sukkah, is that a kosher way of sitting it? Perhaps you're going to go ahead and follow it. It's missing part. This is how really the Mishnah should read. If someone was sitting with his head and most of his body in a sukkah and his table was inside the house. Beis Shammai Omrim lo yatsa, Beis Hillel omrim yatsa. In that case, Beis Shammai says no good because it's a gzeira. You have to have your table in the sukkah. You can't be outside. Beis Hillel says that's no issue because the minimum size is big enough. And no, furthermore, there's another machlokes. If it can't hold Elakadei Rosh Haruba Bilvad, if it can only hold his head and his body, then Beis Shammai Paisim and Beis Hillel Machshir. Then Beis Shammai says puzzle and Beis Hillel says kosher. Fine. 6 lines from the bottom. Montana, so new case.
Maybe the shita of 7x7 is the same as the shita of Rosh Baruba.
No, it's clearly 2 different opinions. Rosh Aruba Shachano and Rosh Baruba. The Gemara gets into later on that it's an extra tefach when you add the shulchan. Even though it's a tefach here and a tefach here, but really because your table is going to be the tefach by tefach in the corner. Yeah. Fine. So Montana Loho, who is this opinion? The Tanur Rabbanan. Bayis she'ein bo arba amos or arba amos. If a house is not at least 4 amos by 4 amos, pater. Now we're going to go through a list of halachas that comes to a bayis, a house.
A house that requires a mezuzah.
Well, let's see. One of the first ones is so pater mina mezuzah. Now this house, first of all, does not require mezuzah if it's less than 4 amos by 4 amos. And we know that let's say one has a roof, right, and it's 4 by 4 on top of the house, right? Then it needs a fence to go around it. If ain't a time been a and whether this is considered to be a house, right, that can go ahead and get tsaras if the house is too small, and even though it has something which appears to be tsaras, doesn't have the halacha of tsaras, and is not considered to be a house in a walled city, but special halachas in a walled city. Right, so this is not even though it's in a walled city, but if it's not a 4 by 4 house, then it does not qualify as a house in a walled city. And what's the main nafkamina of that? Rashi gives you the cliff notes, which is if it's not 4 by 4, then I'm just reading Rashi. You could always go ahead and redeem it, right? Right, and it goes back during Yovel, right? If it was not redeemed, like other land. In other words, land can always be redeemed. Right, land goes back during Yovel, but a walled house in a house in a walled city, you only have a year to redeem it, to buy it back from the seller can only buy it back. He has a year to buy it from the buyer, and it does not go back during Yovel. Fine. Back to the list of halachas when it comes to a bias. Right, it says over there, those of you who have built a new house, right, do not go out to war. Right, or you're putter from going out to war, so that the house has to be at least 4 by 4 amos. And there's a different halachas when it comes to a house, when it comes to an eruv, right? Whether it's placed, in other words, those houses, if it's not 4 by 4, does not have to go ahead and join in the eruv. It's not considered its own rishus, right? And also, if it's a house with a chutzner, right, and it's attached to a mavui, right, a larger courtyard which has different backyards into it, if that chutzner is part of has a house, right? There's a mavui, and the chatzeros are leading into the mavui, and each chatzer really has houses. But if one of those chatzeros only have a house of less than 4 by 4, it's not considered to be a chatzer of a house because there's no house there, right? And also, also in cases of an eruv, when we have to place the chalor or the yayin in a house, it has to be placed in a house of 4 by 4. Turn the page. And we do not make it a connection between 2 cities. The halach is that if you have, in terms of the Tchum Shabbos, if you have 2 cities, right, which are less than each one, basically you have 2,000 amos around it, but there's a halacha by a karpef, right, that has 70 2/3 amos. So that you have that basically before you count the 2,000. Now, if you have 2 cities next to one another, and let's say they're within, they're 70 2/3 and 70 2/3, right? Which is 141 and change. If they're within 141 change, right? Then each one is not, 2,000 from this city, rather it's connected. Then you get the 2,000 around all of them as one, right? But let's say it's exactly 141 and a third, or maybe a little more. If you have a house in the middle, and the house is within 70 2/3 of this city, and the house of 70 2/3 of this city, right? Then it's a connection, right? It's an ibur, right? It's a connection to the 2 of them to have one tchum outside, the boundaries. But that house in the middle has to be a 4 by 4, Right. And then if something is, let's say, a house is by brothers or partners, it does not get divided. There's no din chaluka. It doesn't get divided unless it's a house of 4x4. So those are all the halachas. We'll get into and bring proofs. So the Gemara says, Lema. So who would say this? Lema Rebbe. Maybe this is the opinion of Rebbe V'lo Rabbanan and not Beisil Beishamai, because till now we're talking about a sukkah needs to be 4x4. So 4 amos by 4 amos sounds like very similar to the sheet over here. So Gemara says, no. Afilo Temer Rabbanan. Even you can say it's Rabbanan. Ad kan lo Temer Rabbanan hasmel lina sukkah. Derasarahi. When it comes to sukkah, all you need is a temporary dwelling unit. Temporary dwelling unit that you don't need 4x4. That's 6x6, 6 tvachim by 6 tvachim, 7 tvachim by 7 tvachim. Avalagabe bayis, right? But when it comes to a house, the diras kavahu, right? That some require, that requires a permanent structure, permanent house. Right? Even the Rabbanan will admit there, the Eastlaid but Dalat al Amos al Dalat Amos, that if there is 4 amos by 4 amos, Dari by Inchi, then people will live there, it will sustain the Yelo, and if not, like Dari by Inchi, then people will not go ahead and live there. Fine, 2 dots. So Omar Mar.
So when Rebbe stated his opinion of 4x4, he wasn't pulling it out of the air.
Correct. That was we know that's when it comes by din bias, and it also says he applies to a din sukkah. So we just earlier pater min mezuzah. So this bias, a house, if it's not 4x4, then it's exempt from putting up a mezuzah, right, on the doorway with a makkah and putting a fence around the top, so it's not dangerous. And it won't become tummy from tsaras. It's not considered to be, doesn't go back. It's considered to be land. It's not considered to be a house of a walled city. People go out to war. They won't have to go back if they just built a new house, which is 3 amos by 3 amos. My timer. What is the reason by all these cases in the Torah? The bias ksiv behu beku. Right? It says the word bias in all the psukim. It says the word bias in all these halachas. So therefore, if it's not a bias, it's not 4x4, then it doesn't qualify. And then the next list was vein marvin bo, vein meshatin bo, vein manichin bo. So we say then it does not require a person who that is his house, right? He lives in a small little house, right? 3 amos by 3 amos, a little shed, right? He does not have to join in the eruv, right? If his chatzer is just joins that house, he does not have to go ahead and join into the mavui, right? And which doesn't him not joining doesn't prevent the other people from not carrying. Now, as everybody does the eruv but him, right? Then it's like it's nothing. It's just like a little piece of field that's off to the side and doesn't prevent the others from using that area.
It's got this little shack.
Right. Vein manichin ba'eruv, and also you don't place the eruv inside the house if the halachas in the house. My time, what's the reason? Because it's not fit for living. So eruv chaseros ein manichin bo aval sheet of manichin bo. However, by the way, when it comes to eruv chaseros, we don't put it in because we'll soon see an eruv chaseros. When you connect chaseros, let's say a bunch of houses joining into a yard. So in order to be able to carry from your house into the yard and carry in the yard, right? All of the houses, right, need to join in the eruv, and that bread, let's say, right, is placed in one of the houses. So eruv chaseros ein manichin bo, you can't place in his house because he's in a shed, right? We'll call this 3 amos by 3 amos a shed because he lives in a shed, and therefore his shed is really like a chutzner, right? It's not a house; it's a chutzner by default, right? Aval shituf manichin bo. But when it comes to shituf, right? Shituf is basically the same thing in the essence, but it's combining chatzeros for a mavui, right? So when you can make a mavui carryable, if that's a word, right? Then what are you doing? You're combining all the chatzeros. So his house of a chatzer is considered to be a chatzer. It's not considered a house. It's a chatzer. So when you have to leave the challah, right, in a chatzer or on land, right, his house is actually land. So actually you could use it for the shitufi mavui. So we just say he doesn't have to. That over there that we said over there. So little separate halacha over there. He doesn't have to join in the shita. But by the way, when it comes to, but you'll notice it. We said right. But it doesn't say shituf. Didn't say that. Because halacha is you can't use a shituf because that which you place a shituf is we're about to see is as on land, is in a chutzner, not in a house.
It's part of the chutzner.
It is a chutzner, right? It is a chutzner because it's not a house. By default, if you're not a house, you're a chutzner. So therefore, you can place it in it. So he say, my time was the reason. It's no worse than a chutzner, a yard connected to the courtyard. The Tanan, as we learn in the Mishnah, Erev Chatzeros. This is going to be the Havamina the Gemara is going to ask on it, but Erev Chatzeros b'Chatzer. We place an Erev Chatzeros in a Chatzer, and Shitufi Mavui b'Mavui, and then we also place the bread, right? That's used to connect the Mavui in a Mavui. We ask over there, Erev Chatzeros b'Chatzer. What? You put the Erev Chatzeros, right, to connect all the yards in the Chatzer. But now we learn in Mishnah Hanaisei Ruba B'Beis Sharach Sadrum Repesas Ein Erev. One who goes ahead and places the bread for an Erev Chatzeros, right? You have a bunch of houses leading to a yard. You want to be able to carry there into and outside of the yard on Shabbos and within the yard on Shabbos. So if you go ahead and you place it in the base shar, and let's say in the gatehouse, Achsadrom or Pesas, on the balcony or in a portico, some other area that's just used for shade, it's not used for living, ain't no Erev. It's not a good Erev. Why? Because it has to be in a house. So how could you say, right, the Erev Chatzeros is in a Chatzer? We opposite, right? If you put it in a base shar, Chadron, or Pesach, which is better than a Chatzer, it's no good. The Adar Sham Eino Eiser, and one who lives in one of these temporary houses, right, in the base shar, Chadron, Pesach, he doesn't ask the house from carrying because it's not a house. So Ella, rather say like this: Erev Chatzeros bebayis. We place the bread of an Erev Chatzeros in a house. Sheba Chatzer, excuse me, a house of which is connected to the Chatzer, the Shitufi Mavuyis, and there which we connect in Mavui in order for people to be able to carry from their Chatzer to the Mavui, the Chatzer Sheba Mavui, and one of the Chatzeros of the Mavui. V'hai Logara Mechatzer Sheba Mavui, and since he's in a house attached to a yard, but his house is only a shed, so his shed is no different than any other Chatzer attached to the Mavui, and therefore you can go ahead and place the bread even in his shack or in his yard because it's land. That's where you leave it in. And then we said, right? We don't go ahead and make it a connection between two cities in order to combine them to say that the 2,000 amos go all the way around all the cities, right? We don't even make it like a burden, like a hunter's tent, right? My timer, what's the reason? A burden, a little tent that's set up basically to wash someone's fruits or something like that. So therefore, it's fit for its usage. Its usage is short term, right? To go as someone to sit there during the day to protect him from the sun. But this house is not fit for its purpose. Its purpose, the guy is living in it. It's not fit for living. So therefore, it's actually no good to connect, right? So therefore, since it's no good to connect, therefore it does not connect the two cities. And brothers and partners do not divide it. So why? So the rest says Tamid Lesbe Dalar Amos. So what you're saying is only because it doesn't have 4x4, you don't divide it. But if it was more than 4 amos, let's say 5 amos by 5 amos, we divide it. But tonight we learn in the Mishnah in Cholkin as a Chatzer Achia Arba Amos Arba Amos Lazeh Arba Amos Amos Lazeh. When you divide something, each one has to get something which is 4x4. So in theory, it has to be 8x4, right? 8x4, you can divide it. Each one will get 4x4, right? Not 8x8. 8x8 is 4 times it, right? So it would have to be 8x4. So how could you say it sounds like the halach is if it's not 4x4, you can't divide it? It sounds like if it's 5x4, you could divide it. But we see over here, it has to be a minimum of each one receiving a part of 4x4. So Ella Ema rather say like this: Ein bodin chaluka kichatzer. It doesn't have a halacha of a house. There's certain halachas where a bias creates when you're talking about dividing, right? If something is a house, let's say it was an estate, right, and they're dividing amongst the brothers or the partners, and it's dissolved, right? The special halachas when it comes to a house. What is that? Even the chaluk b'chatzer, dalmar Rav Huna, chatzer lefi p'sachah miskalefes. According to Rav Huna, a chatzer is divided by its doors. In other words, let's say you have an estate, right? They're dividing the estate from the father. He died, and he left over 4 houses. All right, there's 3 little houses and a big house. Okay, and the houses are equal in the same. So according to Rav Huna, so one brother gets 1 big house. And the other one gets 3 little houses. They're equal in value. Let's just say. what comes to the chatzir? So according to Rav Huna, the chatzir is divided according to its entrances. 75% goes to the guy with the 3 houses, and 25% goes to the guy with the 1 house. Even though the 1 house is much larger, doesn't make a difference. It goes by doors opening into the chatzir. So that's how you divide it according to Rav Huna. Rav Chizda Omar, Noisin l'chol Pesach or Pesach arba amos, v'ashar chol kenoso b'shavu. No, what you do is each house, and a house has to be 4 by 4, gets the 4 amos by 4 amos, or the area in front of his Pesach. All right. So in other words, you automatically, the guy with the 3 small houses, you automatically get the little area outside your house. Or you get those 3 areas. The other guy gets the same size area outside his house, and everything else is divided 50-50. So they argue as to how to divide the land, but all of these are used when this house is, each one has to be at least 4 by 4. So that's the din of the house having to be 4 by 4. If the house is going to last, it's a usable house, and we give him right? Then he gets a chutzir, which is outside. It's either it's 75% or just the area around it. But a house that will not last, that's going to be destroyed, then he has no right to a special area outside his doorway. Fine. 2 dots at the bottom of Gimel and Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. Hoisa. Now we get into some the real meat and potatoes of sukkah. Hoisa gvul me'esrim amma uba l'miyata b'karm v'kistos. The sukkah was 21 ounces, was higher than 20 ounces. Right? Too high. We learned in the Mishnah, right? According to the Rabbanan, it's too high. So what does he do? Instead of lowering the walls, I have an idea. I'm going to go out, bring my pillows or mattresses, put it on the sukkah. I'm going to raise the floor. Raise the floor. So now the airspace between the schach and my floor, right, is 19 amos. So I think about it's not good, right? It's not good because why is that? Why is it not good? Even though this guy says, you know what, I'm not going to touch these pillows or this mattress for the next 8 days. I'm not going to, or 7 days, right? I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to leave it for my sukkah, right? It's no good. Why? Because the average person does not leave mattresses and pillows in their sukkah, right? And therefore, that's really considered to be a movable object, right? And a movable object is considered like it's not there. If it's not there, you go back. It's now 21 amos. It's not 19 amos. So therefore, it's no good. So let's see. If he goes teva no bitlo, guy has straw, right? We're just doing different materials. Straw. Now, straw is usable to feed animals, but it's also not so usable. It's not generally, used for. So it's mostly used for feed or something like that. So teva no bitlo. If he has teva and he's mavatal it, he says, "I'm not going to use it." Havi miyut. That is considered to be miyut. That's considered to be basically like nullifies it. It's part of the ground. Therefore, you can consider the airspace to be 19 amos, and therefore would be a kosher sukkah. The culture can certainly offer a bittul. Certainly, if he has dirt there, he places dirt there, and he's mavatal. He says, "I'm not going to use this dirt for something else. I'm going to leave it there for the entire sukkah." It works. However, what about tevin b'yein asu v'naso? What about he puts straw there, and he without plans to go ahead and remove it, right? He doesn't need it. He doesn't need it throughout the sukkahs, throughout the entire holiday. The offer stamp, or just places dirt there with no intentions. Now, dirt is something which is never really used.
So he's not mevatel it for the sukkah. He just
He just put it there, right? But with the offer,
part of the sukkah or not.
right? So that's machlokes Rabbi Yossi v'Rabban. That's to be machlokes in Rabbi Yossi v'Rabban. The Tanah we learn in the Mishnah by Shimalu Tevanot Sroros so bitlu mavutul, right? So if a house was full, right, of tevin, a straw or rocks, then it's considered, right, or pebbles, right? Then it's considered to be mavutul, right? That is batul. Now this is a Mishnah from Olos is describing, I believe it's by Tuma over there. The halach is over there, right? That in order for Tuma to go straight up, normally Tuma rises l'rakia. Tuma goes all the way up, unless there's an ohel. Ohel has to be if there's a roof, and there has to be at least a gap of 1 tefach. Right? If there's a gap of 1 tefach, then the tuma,
The tuma.
right? Then the tuma does not go through the roof. Rather, the ohel basically, stops it, captures. Right now, if you fill up here and there's no longer a tefach, so that's what's talking about over there. So you fill it up with straws, with pebbles, right, or tevin or straw. That was the case over there. So he fills it over there.
Is tefach a minimum or a maximum?
That's the minimum has to be.
The maximum for it to be a tumor or two.
No.
That's
Right.
the minimum space.
The minimum space. It has to be at least a tefach. At least a
Below
tefach.
that,
Right.
we'll calculate,
Right.
get rid of it, otherwise
So if you have more
Right.
than a tefach,
Right.
it captures.
Yeah, it
Right.
can't.
Correct. So he's putting the rocks. They want to know if does this consider to be like the tuma goes up now because they put it in there. So if it's teven or it's ros bitl and they're vatal mavuto, because basically they're not going to use it anymore. It's mavuto. So Gemara sounds like over there for the Mishnah it says bitlin dafka if he's mavatal that's throws to the teven, right? Lo bitlu, but if it was not mavatal, he put it there stam lo. The Tanya learns says over there Rabbi Yosi Yomer teven beinas lifnai sahare offer stam straw, and he's not going to go ahead and use it is the same as offer stam ubatal, right? And here's batal an offer of Yosef lifnosa, but if he puts dirt there and he's going to use it again hareu kastam teven v'loy bital, right? Then it's like stam teven. Then it's like straw, right, which is placed without a usage and is not bottled because straw without a usage, right, is considered to be something that's going to be used again, right? So there's different levels of materials. So we have basically what it comes down to is pillows and mattresses. You can't be mavatal, right? Regular afar, right, is always mavatal unless you say I'm going to use it tomorrow, right? Regular afar, straw, right, and pebbles that he's mavatal and says I'm not going to use it, that works, right? If he puts straw, right, or dirt stam, right, then that's the machlokes between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yosef. Fine. Next case. So that was the case of filling up the bottom. If his sukkah was, let's say, once again, 21 amos tall, it was higher than 20 amos, and there were a lot of people, right? Then they put up their schach, right? Depends how many slats they put on, with the old school, back in the day when people actually put on green schach on top of the sukkah, right? So, you had some people, they put very few of those slats, and the schach is hanging down, right? You got schach hanging down. Other people, you don't have anything hanging down below the slats. But imagine you have the slats there at 21 amos, and you have all the schach hanging from there. Let's say the schach hangs 3 amos down, right? So if the slats are at 21 amos, and the schach is hanging down to the level of 18 amos, all right? Now, if there is imagine you go ahead and you take a snapshot of all of at the 20 amos level of all the schach that is hanging. If there is more shade than sun in that area, if it's 51% of schach in that airspace at the 20 amos mark, kshera, then it's kosher. If it's not as psula, then it's not, it's possible. Because we look over there at the 20 amos mark, right? So therefore, if you have enough hoots in Yordan, if you have enough of these, the schach hanging down, then it could still be good, even though it starts at a much higher, at a higher height. And haisa gaba asar tefachim, the hoots in Yordan, let's say asar. So let's say the same thing. You're in a small sukkah, which is only 10 tefachim tall, right? You're in there crouched, and there's branches once again schach hanging down. So if right? So now, remember, you're in a sukkah, which is, let's say, exactly 10 tefachim. All right? So, haisa gavoa asar tefachim, right? So, it was, let's say, 11 tefachim, right? But from the bottom of the schach that's hanging down is, let's say, 9 tefachim. But what you know is, asar. So, sever Abai, let's say, im chamas merubat says, let's apply the same rule, right? If you look at all the schach hanging down, but there's only 45% of that which is coming down below 10 tefachim is only 45% the schach, and therefore, so it's not considered. It's not good schach, right? Schach has to be at least 51%. It's only 45%, right, of schach. Therefore, it's 55% sun. So therefore, it's not considered to be schach there, right? So therefore, I can say it's good, right? Because the rest of the schach is at the 11 tefachim mark, right? We'll just apply the same rule, but opposite, right? So he thought to say that. No, No, this is a dira srucha, right? Srucha means like something which smells or rots. This is not a good dwelling unit. Why? Because you're forgetting, right? How are you sitting in something which is below 10 tvachim, right? Yes, you're right. It's only 45% schach below the 10 tvachim mark. But that's not a way to sit in some sort of hut, right? You can't sit in something which is lower because your ear space, even though it's not 51%, it's still ruining your experience in the sukkah. So therefore, even though, right, the hutzim that come down are
50 inches basically.
Right, yeah, you're sitting down there, right? You're sitting down lower. So you can't take up that airspace of anything low. So therefore, you don't. So according to Rava, you don't apply the rule, right? It works a little different, and therefore it's a dira srucha and it would not work. Now, next case. So let's say, right, there's a picture in the Gemara, right? So a person has, right, we're going to go with a 3-wall sukkah, right? Person, all you need is 3 walls or 2 and change, right? So you have a 3-wall sukkah and you build, right? So it's like a ches, right? So it's like a ches and you build, right, like this picture from wall to wall, platform, extending from wall to wall, and the other side is back there. So if the entire schach was, let's say, 25 amos, let's say 21 amos, but you build a platform of 3 amos tall, so therefore, when you're on the platform, right, and there's sukkah, and you're on the platform, it's good, right, because from the top of the platform to the schach is 18 amos, and you have 3 walls from the platform, that is good. We say it's good, right? Because an itztava is like we saw earlier, when you fill the floor with dirt, right? A platform is better, right, than dirt. That's something that's that can be placed there permanently. Uminat sad. However, let's say you put it on the side. All right. So now if you look at the one on the side, the second picture in the Gemara, right? So you see he didn't build the itztava from one side to the other, the ches, he built it on one side. So now if you're standing on this platform, you have 2 walls there with, right, you have 2 sides with the walls. The other areas, right, other area from the itztava, you don't have a wall there, right? It's like open space, right? So no, what do you say? So he said, if you have from the edge of the itztava, right, going across to the 3rd wall, right? If that area is the kaisel dalat amos, right, is 4 amos or more, then it's psula. Then it's no good, right? Because you don't have a wall here, right? I can't build a sukkah and say, hey, this is my sukkah. You only have 2 walls. No, my wall is, see that wall 10 feet away? That's like my wall there. That doesn't work, right? You can't sit there with my schach and my wall being 10 feet away. I need 3 walls where my schach is, right? So if my wall is 10 feet away, it's no good. So therefore, that wall over there is no good.
So his platform that he constructed,
doesn't only touches 2 walls. If the 3rd wall is more than dalat amos psula, hachas me'arba amos, but if it's less than dalat amos kshera, then it's okay. So the Gemara says, Mike, why is that good? So Mike Kamash, what's going to teach you about the Damrin and Dofen Akuma? That we say Dofen Akuma. So Dofen Akuma, right, means a bent wall, right? Machlok is exactly how it works, but what is known is that Dofen Akuma is halach l'moshe Sinai. Halach l'moshe Sinai is, right, that if one has, right, a wall, right, and basically the wall goes up and then the roof is attached to my schach, right, we can say basically that this part, which is my roof, right, is actually my dofen. It's my wall, and it's a bent wall. So my wall goes up and to the side, right? As long as when it goes up and then to the side is less than 4 amos, I can basically say magically that the wall, halakhically, right? Halakhically, right? The wall, right, is now basically next to my schach, and it can work as my wall. But if the bend is too long, the bend is 5 amos, 6 amos, we don't say it moves over, right? It's all machlok is whether one can sit under the dofen akuma, right? So that's for later. But anyways, so Gemara says, so what are you coming to teach me? The halachas of dofen akuma, that if it's 4 amos is no good, less than 4 amos is good, right? Tanina, we actually learn this. If you have a house and basically part of the house, the ceiling caved in, and he said, I have a good idea. We can live in our house. We'll put schach there, right? We'll put schach 4 sugas, and basically we live in our house with the skach there. So so if the entire room, so let's say this is our room, and let's say the lights, right? We do within the lights here, right? Within the lights, we put skach in the middle, right? And so there's still wall up until the lights on all 4 sides, right? So if we say, if there is dalat amos between the lights and the wall, right? Then we could say that
Less than that.
if it's less than dalat amos, then we can say the halachically the wall is actually, by the skach, akuba, and it works, right? So my question is, so we say by shneis k'tzikal gabav, im yesh min ha'kaisa siha dalat amos psula. There's more than dalat amos psula. So ha'pachas mikabah is less than ekshera. Then it's good. So if we already know these halachas of dofen akuma, why teach me again? So the Gemara says no. Mojib said over there, that was a wall. This was a wall before. This is a wall of 10 amos. 10 amos is a wall. But over here, it's not a wall, right? Because over here, my wall over here, the case with the Itztaba, right? What was the whole issue? It was too tall, right? So that's 21 amos. So maybe I don't say dofen akuma to make it a wall. It's not a wall. It's too big, right? It's too keva, right? We say dofen akuma in that case. Fine. Next case. If it was more than 20 amos, and he built a stand in the middle, so if you have a huge sukkah and it's, once again, it's 22 amos tall, but I'm going to put the stage in the middle, not next to any of the walls. So if it's within dalat amos of all 4 sides, then it's good, right? If not, then it's no good. But the shachar is 7:45 today, right? Yeah, okay. So we say, so if it's l'chol b'sula, so pas me arba amos ksheiros. My kamash mas halacha damrin doven akuma. Why do you say we say doven akuma? Hay nohach. We just brought examples of doven akuma. What's the chiddush here? So Ma'alatem just said doven akuma miruach achas amrina. Maybe you only say doven akuma one time on a sukkah. Right? We give you a maximum. You get a 1 wild card, right? There's only 1 wild card, dofen akuma, right? About kol ruach lo, maybe to say dofen akuma on this side, dofen akuma on this side, dofen akuma on this side, 3 sides dofen akuma. Come on, you're pressing the luck. Kamash malon, you can say that. Fine.
So even if you did put it
in the middle, as long as it's in dalat amos of all 4 sides, or at least 3 sides, then it's good. You got a little low. Imagine a large sukkah, but however, the height is 9 tefachim. I say, I have an idea. How am I going to construct this? Right? I'm going to go ahead and dig down 3 amos. I'm going to dig underneath the skach 3 amos. So I'm going to lower the floor. Right? We're talking about adding the floor. I'm going to lower the floor. So 8. Right? It's only 8, but I'm adding 3 down. 8 plus 3 is 11. I got 11 airspace. Perfect, right? In order to make it at least 10 tefachim, if you have from the edge, right, that he carved down to the wall, gimel tefachim, right? If it goes down gimel tefachim, right, then we say then it's psula, right? Then in this case, if it's from the edge there to the wall of 3 tefachim, then it's too close, right? Then it's considered to be part of the wall, and therefore, in the wall, it comes, we say lavud, right? In other words, that something is next to each other. The only halacha we have besides doven akuma halacha Sinai is lavud. So therefore, if that he digs down is too close to the wall, therefore, no, it's considered to be where that floor was, and therefore, right, psula. However, pachas mishlosh tefachim, but if it's less than 3 tefachim between the edge of where he dug down and the wall, right, it's pachas mishlosh tefachim kshera. So the Gemara wants to know, Maishna hasam diamarta pachas me'arba amos. When we're talking about building up and you put a platform there, you got 4 amos to the side, and we're saying, okay, if it's within 4 amos, then you can say it's part of the wall. Oh, Maishna hasam, but over here, diamarta pachas mishlosh tefachim. But over here, we say you only get 3 tefachim. So Hasan the Isala Daifen Pachas Me'arba Amos Sagya, right? Over there, right? When there is a wall, right? So therefore the wall is already a wall. So therefore we only require dalat amos Sagya. However, Hachal Lishavi Daifen. But over here we're talking about making the wall. Remember, part of your wall is 8 tefachim here, and 3 tefachim here, right? So to make a wall, we can't say that they're 3.5 amos apart, and there's, oh, look at the wall, it's like this, right? No, that's not a wall. The wall has to be closer together. So if the wall, the 3 on the bottom that you dug down, and the 8 on top, right, are within 3 tefachim of one another, that would be okay, right? But once we have to make the wall, it's only 3 tefachim. You can't say it's within daled amos, then it makes the wall. Because over here, remember, we have to add to the length of the wall. Over there, we just need the wall to move over. Right? We already have a wall. We just need it to move over. Over here, you're making the wall. Since you're making the wall, it has to, walls are straight, right? So, okay, 3 tefachim, not a big deal, right? But once more than
has to be on the top, not on the bottom.
That's also true, right? Yeah, that's all right. But over there, it's already a wall. Over here, right? He said the doifin pachas me'arba amos. Over here to make it a wall, then 3 tefachim in. Only that it works, low. But if not, if it's more than 3 tefachim, then it's not. Then it's no good. And Haisa Gva Me'asrim Amma, if it was more than 20 amos. Umbanaba Amud. Now he built a stand, right? Calls it an Amud, not an Itztava, the same concept. He builds a stand, a little stage in the middle. Now, this stand is at least 10 tefachim. All right. So it's 10 tefachim. He puts it in the middle. The walls are too far. Forget about the walls on the side. Those are 15 amos away from the side. Dofen Akuma is out the door, all right? But he builds a stand. He makes a stand over here, right? Imagine this is a square, all right? So he builds a stand over here. The Yesh B'Hakshar Sukkah, and there's a Hakshar Sukkah. Let's say it's at least 7 by 7, or even 4 amos by 4 amos. The stand over there, all right? V'yesh B'Hakshar Sukkah. Savar by Lememer. Go to Asi Mechitzasa. Abai wants to say a special halacha. Another halacha Mashusi that. Call it go to asik, go to achisar asik. There's 2 different ways. Go to asik, right? Go to asik mechitzasa. Basically, that the walls go up. In other words, since you have the walls are down here, right? It's like the walls are up. In other words, my walls are below me, right? Imagine someone standing, right, on a huge box. So since I'm standing on the huge box, right, that which is underneath goes halachically goes up. Right. So, right. If I'm this chair, right. Let's say I'm standing on here, right. This is my platform here. So the walls is the guy, right. He's standing in a sukkah. So and his sock is up here. So where's his walls? It's too far. So we say this right here goes up, go to asik, right. This right here goes up, go to asik. This right here goes go to asik. So all this halachically we say when it comes to Erev and other cases of walls where we need walls, right. Mostly when it comes to Erev. Maybe we would say the same thing here when it comes to halachic walls for a sukkah. So says no. No, it's a special halacha when it comes to sukkah, right? Special halacha when it comes to sukkah that you need recognizable walls. If the walls here are not recognizable, i.e., they're below me and they go up, then that's not considered to be a wall. This is the next sugya start. We'll stop here. A little short. But we'll continue. Yeah, but we have the whole week, Mitzvah Shem, to go ahead and just catch up. So hopefully tomorrow, right? Because of Tisha B'av. Yeah, so maybe we'll work a little ahead because we're missing a couple days. So we'll stop here. Sure. Yeah, my plan is to be here, Mitzvah Shem.